Chadash. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai Baruch Hu Shemo. Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato. Unto God, sing a song. Let the whole world, sing along. Raise your voice, let the whole earth rejoice. 'Cause we all just singing a new song. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Unto God, sing a song. Let the whole world, sing along. Raise your voice, let the whole earth rejoice. 'Cause we all just singing a new song. Unto God, sing a song. Let the whole world, sing along. Raise your voice, let the whole earth rejoice. 'Cause we all just singing a new song.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom. I'm so glad to see those of you who are joining us in person, and a special welcome to those who are joining us online as well. It's a little bit warm out there, so I hope wherever you are has the air conditioner that we have here. Okay, so if you spend some time in Florida, you're like, okay, it's not that bad, but for the rest of us, woo, it's warm out there. It is wonderful to bring different types of music and musicality to our service. The welcoming song that you heard as the countdown clock was online, or those of you who are joining us in the room, Jacob Spike Krause is a newer Jewish musician on the summer camp circuit who will join us as our musician in residence a couple of times throughout the year. But I'm especially excited to get to welcome who should be a bit more of a familiar face for all of us. Cantor Rena is with us from Beth Samuel Jewish Center in Ambridge, but delighted to have you, as always, back on the pulpit at Temple Emanuel.
It's an honor to be here. My honor to be here. Thank you, Rabbi.
Leading us in song and in prayer, beginning on page 10 in your prayer books.
Maya Fehayo, Shabbat Shalom. Maya Fehayo, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
And I invite you to turn back in your prayer book now to page 2, as it's my pleasure to invite Joan Rothas forward to lead us in the kindling of our Shabbat lights, bringing some much needed light and at least metaphoric warmth into our lives with the onset of Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives, lest all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts, may our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
You're very welcome. I was looking to see if I have one. I do. There we go.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you so much. And as we turn to page 5 in our prayer book for our evening Kiddush, if it's comfortable for you to rise, I would invite you to do so, symbolically joining in the sip, literally joining in the words of prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei puri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zicharon l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon Hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. I invite you to again take your seats as we turn back to page 10. And Cantor, Rena, would you do us the honor of introducing our next prayer this evening?
Would love to, thank you. The Kabbalat Shabbat service, literally welcoming Shabbat, was created, as its name implies, by the Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics of Tzfat in the 16th century, and was almost universally accepted quite readily. Although it's a relatively recent innovation in our liturgy, it probably springs from such ancient customs as those of Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Yanai of the 3rd century. The Talmud records that at sunset on Shabbat evening, Rabbi Hanina would stand outside, dressed in fine garments, and say, "Come, let us go forth to welcome the Sabbath queen." And Rabbi Yanai, in festive attire as well, would say, "Come, O bride, come, O bride." Similarly, the Tzfat Kabbalists used to walk out into the fields at the edge of their mountain village in order to greet the day of rest. There they could survey the beauty of creation, the mountains, the valley, the forests, the sky, and the sea, and they could give voice to their praise of creation as they honor Shabbat and escort Shabbat to their homes. And so our Kabbalat Shabbat today has been augmented to include passages from the Song of Songs, Psalms, and other songs, as we have in our Siddur, roughly on pages 6 through 19 or 20 and on. And one of these selections in your Siddur is Shabbat Hamalka, which we will sing together in a moment. Its theme is similar to that of Lecha Dodi, Come, Let Us Welcome the Sabbath Bride. Shabbat Hamalka is also closely related to Shalom Aleichem, since these two also refer to returning home, when the table is set, the candles are lit, and the day of blessing and peace ensues. There is a second stanza to Shabbat Hamalka which says this, though most Siddurim only have the first verse, as does ours. The words of this piece were written by the great poet Chaim Nachman Bialik, who lived from 1873 to 1934, and who incidentally also wrote Yedid Nefesh. The music for Shabbat Hamalka, which we will be singing tonight, was written by Pinchas Minkowski of that same era, and the piece was published in the early 1900s. I remember this melody from when I was very young, not in the early 1900s, and I invite you to sing it with me now. It's on the bottom of page 10. Shabbat Hamalka in Hebrew, and in what we call a singable English. Achama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka bo'u v'deitze likrat Shabbat Hamalka Hinei yoredet hakadosha haberucha Ve'im ha'malachim tzva shalom Boi, boi, amaka. Boi, boi, akala. Shalom aleichem, malachei hashalom. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather to welcome the Sabbath, our Queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her the angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Peace also to you, you angels of peace. Did anyone recognize that melody? From my way past. Well, now you know it. We can do it again sometime. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you. And I invite you to turn now to page 20 as we continue to welcome the Sabbath, as we continue to metaphorically welcome the bride with words of Lecha Dodi, page 20.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu ha'miuchad, Adonai echad, Shemo echad. L'shem u'letiferet v'letehila, la 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 Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat, l'chu v'nechad, ki hi mikor ha'beracha, merosh mikedem nisucha. Sof ma'aseh b'macha Shabbat achila, la 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 Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. Verse verse 5 to the top of 21. Itoruri, kiva orech kumiori, uri, shir daberi, kavod Adonai alayach migalalalachadelti, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat mikabela, lachadododi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat mikabela. Verse 9. Believe shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzala, tov emunei am segula, bo'ichala, lachadodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat mikabela, lachadodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat mikabela.
While you are up, I'd invite you to take this opportunity to turn to the people around you to wish them a Shabbat Shalom, that we might join in sacred community and prayer this evening. And as you finish your words of greeting, I'd invite you to again be seated as we continue our welcoming God's ministering angels and welcoming a new tune or welcoming back an old tune, or we sing together on page 24.
And it starts with a very easy nigun, which comes back in between each verse. I'm sure you'll pick that up readily, and I've done it before here, so maybe you remember it. And the verses are easy to do too, so please join in on as much as you can. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la la la, ya la la la. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la. Seitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la.
Would you join me now in the English on the bottom of page 27? Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba Be'almad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael Bagala uv'izman kariv v'meru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam Ulam Me'amaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yipar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitalev V'yithalal Shemei D'Kudsha B'richu Le'la Mincho B'chata V'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'alma v'meru. Amen. On page 28, our Baruch Hu praise, the formal call to worship where we intone that we are ready to join in the prayers of our people. I invite you to rise if it is comfortable for you to do so as we continue on page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Li'olam Va'ed.
Would you join me in the English on the bottom of page 30? Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gate, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly course according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Sibaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. And on the top of page 33, as you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael, pages 34 and 35.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, b'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'lechtecha v'aderech, u'shokbecha u'kumecha, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. On the top of page 41 in the English before our Mi Chamocha praise, sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Please join me in Debbie Friedman's setting of Mi Chamocha. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi Chamocha neder b'kodesh, norat tehillah. Oh, say fella, no right to you, oh, say fella. Mahachut echaro v'necha, okay, I am with the Moshe Miriam. Say li anu v'yamu, li anu v'yameru. Adonai lo la'olam va'ed.
And on the bottom of page 43, a prayer for protection and peace with the onset of evening. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. And on the top of page 44, rejoicing in a song and in the covenant of Shabbat.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam b'ni uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam oti le'olam v'shamru Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam sheshet yamim asa Adonai et
in the middle of page 47 in preparation for our Shabbat Amidah. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city, but prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will. If it's comfortable for you to do so, I invite you to rise as we join on page 46. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agite ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Hasei Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem L'man Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Hoshia Mori Atah Mechalker Chaim Bechesed Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Menit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atah L'chayot HaKol Baruch Atah Adonai Mechaye HaKol Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kdoshim B'chol Yom Yaluch HaSelah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. The remaining blessings of the Amidah can be found in your prayer book through our prayer for peace on page 60. I invite you to pray the traditional words of prayer, to add the prayers that can only come from each of our own hearts. And when you have finished your silent prayers this evening, I invite you to be seated.
conclude our silent meditation with Shalom Rav on the top of page 60. I'll just mention that I was privileged to attend and teach at the North American Jewish Choral Festival this past week. It was held in Stamford, Connecticut. There were several hundred of us there, not as many as usual, but certainly a lot of people. And Cantor Jeff Klepper and Rabbi Dan Freelander are always there. This is the 33rd year. I've probably been to about 30 of them, and I know both of them well, and a lot of other folks there. They, of course, were there, and they sang their Shalom Rav for us, and then we, of course, sang together with them because we just couldn't not. I think it was like the anniversary of when they wrote it, like at least 48, 49, or almost 50 years before that they actually wrote that and published it soon after. So I'm kind of motivated and on the heels of that wonderful experience last week. So I invite you to join me in Shalom Rav, Klepper and Freelander. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Be'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Be'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lecha shalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lecha shalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Be'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Be'olam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam.
We turn in our prayer books to page 253, where we find our Mishaberach Lecholim, our prayer for those who are ill and in need of companionship, in need of healing, in need of our prayers and the actions of our hands. There are those whom you are thinking for this prayer, those suffering from ailments of mind, of body, of spirit. I invite you to share their name with the congregation, if you are comfortable doing so.
Beth McKinney, Jeffrey.
My mother, Kathy Duchess, is very ill.
Ann Walker.
Running school.
John Paul Mahofsky.
Deb Harris.
Jennifer Pickles.
Yehuda Leg, Anna, Mary Powell.
Cheryl Taka.
Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaChalim. Blessed are you, God, who brings a measure of comfort to all who are ill. And together we say, Amen. Page 253.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBeracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
Turn it and turn it again, for everything is in it. Thus say the sages of Jewish tradition in the name of Ben Bogbog when they would teach about Torah. New life experiences, new circumstances bring new interpretations of our ancient text, including this week's Torah portion. While I was perusing a bookstore in the land of Israel, I found a commentary on Torah offered by Rabbi Adin Evan Israel Steinsaltz, Zichrono Livracha, titled A Concise Guide to Torah. While his name may not be a household name in Reformed Jewish America, he was, as Time magazine described him, a, quote, once-in-a-millennium scholar. If you were to add up, if you were to take the top 5 rabbi names you know, combine all of the texts that they know, you wouldn't even come close to the amount of text that Rabbi Steinsaltz knew. His translation of the entire Talmud into accessible English, his authorship, his opinions, he was the scholar of the 20th century. The president of Israel referred to him as, I quote, modern-day Rashi. It's a pretty high honor. You get the point. While a concise guide to Torah may be something of a misnomer, weighing in at 805 pages, his style of commentary was indeed concise. And this week he inspired me, and hopefully you, with only 3 sentences of introduction to this week's Torah portion. But first, a little bit about what's in this week's Torah portion so we can see his brilliance. We read about a census taken of the Israelite people after a plague, and we read about a legal claim brought by the 5 daughters of Zelophehad. Machlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, Tirzah stood before Moses, before Eleazar the priest, before the chieftains, before the whole assembly of the people of Israel at the entrance to the tent of meeting, kind of the who's who of the Israelite leadership. And they said, and I quote, "Our father died in the wilderness through no fault of his own. He left no sons, but with the laws of inheritance, as they're described in the Torah, his name will be lost, and we will have no holding." Moses thought about that one for a moment, quickly realized that it was above his pay grade, and decided to kick that one up the food chain. The Torah, it turns out, did not contain a particular provision for this circumstance. The daughters of Zelophehad, according to Torah before this, had no right to inheritance. Yet their case certainly felt to Moses to be just. He took it to the highest court in the land, God's self, who decided, and I quote from Numbers, "The plea of Zelophehad's daughters is just. You should give them a hereditary holding from among their father's kinsmen." So with that understanding of what happened in this week's Torah portion, we return to Rabbi Steinsaltz's introduction, and I quote, "Zelophehad had died with no sons to inherit land on behalf of his family. His daughters seek to establish a precedent and inherit themselves. Their request is brought before God and is granted, establishing a legal precedent for the generations." End quote. Rabbi Steinsaltz introduces us to the text that we're about to read, yes, but he also calls out in those 3 short sentences what makes this Torah portion absolutely amazing. Remember that in Rabbi Steinsaltz's ultra-Orthodox mindset, God gave Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai. Torah is brilliant. It's infallible. God gave it to Moses. It's the very word of God. And Rabbi Steinsaltz recognized that it couldn't cover all possible circumstances that would later occur after that foundational document had been written. Machlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, Tirzah, they have names, and we should probably use them more often, believed themselves to have a right not specifically granted in the Torah portion. And when asked, God's self affirmed that they were right. Their cause is just, we read in God's voice in Numbers 27:7, adding a lasting legal precedent and essential right to the Jewish people's founding document of the Torah. It truly is a remarkable Torah portion. Turns out there's a lot we can learn from the biblical text for this day and age. And it's an important insight into Torah Rabbi Steinsaltz offers us. Hafok ba v'hafok ba dekola va, turn it and turn it again, for truly there is wisdom to be found in every generation. With that, I invite you to turn back in your Sidurim, back in your prayer books, as on the bottom of page 282, we find words of Aleinu L'Shabeach. As you find your page, if it's comfortable for you to do so, I would invite you to rise as we join together in prayer.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gedula yosef b'reshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, v'lo asamanu k'mishpechot adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
I invite you to be seated as we turn in our prayer book to page 289 for a reading before our Kaddish prayer. The light of life is a finite flame. Like the Shabbat candles, life is kindled, it burns, it glows, it is radiant with warmth and beauty. But soon it fades, its substance is consumed, and it is no more. In light we see, in light we are seen. The flames dance, and the life burns down in gutters. There is an end to the flames. We see no more and are no more seen, yet we do not despair, for we are more than a memory slowly fading into the darkness. With our lives we give life. Something of us can never die. We move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and life. In preparation for our Kaddish Yatom, our memorial prayer, we remember those from the congregation who have gone before us. We observe the period of Shaloshim for Naomi Sokolov and mark the yahrzeit, the commemoration of the passing of Amber N. Abrams, Meyer Mickey Appelman, Mitzi Appelman, Carl Boehm, Donna Barron, Howard Barish, Rebecca Potter Burnson, Edith Bernstein, Leah Bloom, Sam Fabricant, Leona Fox, Harold Goldman, Martin Herman, Arthur Hurwitz, Minnie Klein, Robert Louis Kozel, Nathan Lang, Louis Lynchner, Edith Levine, Rhoda Levine, Reuben Levine, A. Roy Lightman, Irene Simon Lozman, Harold Dushinsky, Samuel Markowitz, Leona Pober Marks, Deborah Miller, Lawrence I. Miller, Joseph Newhouse, Miriam Olshansky, Blanca Perez, Herman A. Pink, Esther Seltzer Recht, Simpson Schechter, Leonard Scheinholz, Francis Schumacher, Lena Rosen Schwartz, Jerome A. Seiner, Norman Shalan, Harvey Schulman, Michael Gerson Silver, Louise Tischler Stein, Jack Steiner, Ricky Sternheim, Esther Stiers, Ann Tabor, Jules Taffler, Louis Taffler, Marion Blattner Wine, Gloria A. Werner, and Mary Zoffer. Taffler, Marion Blattner Wine, Gloria A. Werner, and Mary Zoffer. To their names we add others whom you may be remembering this Shabbat, or those whose names I may have inadvertently mispronounced. Yehei zichronam livracha, may the memory of our loved ones be for us a blessing. I would invite you to rise, if it is comfortable to do so, as we turn in our prayer book to page 294, affirming together words of Kaddish Yatom. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'byomechon, u'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudshah b'richu le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May God, who makes peace in the highest of heavens, make peace for us and for all who mourn. And together we say, Amen. You're welcome to be seated. You know, streaming services out onto the internet allows not only those of you who are with us in real time to share in our prayer experience, but also allows for the asynchronous viewing of services. And so I want to take this moment of privilege, though she is not able to be with us in the room, to recognize an important milestone. You know, we're told in Jewish tradition that we don't do good deeds, we don't do mitzvot, we don't do commandments we've been asked to do for recognition or for thank you. And yet sometimes the performance of a mitzvah impacts so many around us. And I'm told that tonight is Melinda Fried's 15th year of leading services at Concordia. It is a remarkable milestone and a tremendous mitzvah that brings the joy of Shabbat to so many in the community. And Melinda, thank you for that and for all of the mitzvot you do to enrich the Jewish community. Thank you. Thank you as well to those who are joining us in the room, those who have joined us for our Shabbat evening prayers. To you, Cantor, Rena, thank you for joining us, leading us in song. Leslie Hoffman for making all of that asynchronous magic work. We conclude our service with words with which we usually begin, recognizing how wonderful it is to come together, even on a summertime Shabbat, soaking in the air conditioning, soaking in the prayers and the sense of community we've created tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you.
Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.